Again, thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate having you. It's a joy. It's a beautiful day in Southern California. Uh, and again, spring is right down the corner, so it's fantastic. Today we're going to talk about is about the relationship between wealth and health, but how we can actually maximize our efforts to become financially independent, some of the paths we can take. So, one of the things that this is my 41st year. I've been in business of investing and finance. I just finished my 40th year in February, so it's my 41st year. And what I've found out, there's a direct relationship between the concerns of people and individuals, families, businesses, communities, and their outlook about wealth and health. And what I mean by that, what we have found out, if we can balance life and we have a right outlook and right planning, if we have good health and good wealth, that generally leads to happiness. And when I talk about wealth or even health, health, it's not just a singular, just about money. Health is not just about physical, it's about our emotional, it's about our mental. And more importantly, at least in my opinion, is our spiritual health. Once we balance those and wealth, it could be, again, it could be emotional wealth, but in our situation today, we're going to talk about from the financial and monetary side of things. I give you one example. So, for instance, when we have like financial difficulties, what happens in financial difficulty, it causes stress. And I know many people go through that, and it creates anxiety. And then you get all these unfortunate calls, and that actually leads to mental health problem. Now, once we have this mental health problem, well, how can we work? We have the bills accumulating. In the meantime, we cannot even focus on things. So this becomes a vicious cycle. So that's from one relationship between the finances and our health, from the mental side of things. But also, when we think about our physical being, you've heard of, we think about gut feeling, for instance. A lot of people think that, everything happens in our brain, our emotions, our moods, our aspirations, serotonin, dopamine. Well, these are all the chemicals. All the neurotransmitters which create that. That's why you need to have a good sleep. But 90% of that is produced in our gut, in our intestines. So feeding our body the right way, having the right physical activities, not putting the wrong things in our body. Again, I mentioned about good sleep. They all affect our mood, which then it affects our decision making, our outlook about life, and eventually it affects our financial decision making. So, this is a great quote from Mohandas Mahatma Gandhi, and he talks about our beliefs. So, your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits, and your habits become your values, and eventually your values become your destiny. But one common thing, you see how it starts with your beliefs. And that's the thing that the basis of a lot of success and failures in our lives. So, what is your self-limiting beliefs? And especially when it comes to money, it's about our values, about self-worth. So, whether we have all the knowledge, all the degrees in the world, at the end of the day, it comes to our self-limiting beliefs about money. And this is just 10 things that from this is Joe Vitale. It's one of the original. I don't know if you ever watched Secret, 2006 or so. He was one of the participants and one of the authors of that. And I thought this was really interesting. There were many other things I'm sure you've heard of, but these are his 10. Some of them you might agree, some of them you might not, but it is a common theme in when you think about your childhood, when you think about the times that you had friends and family members and teachers and coaches. One of the things, the common things we hear is money is the root of all evil. The actual thing is the love of money is the root of all evil. If I'm successful, people will hate me. If I make $1 million, I might lose it, and then I would feel stupid and hate myself forever. There's not enough money to go around. If I have a little more than I need to get by, someone else has to go without. If I have a lot more than I need to get by, lots of people will have to go without. It is better to take less than to be responsible for someone else's hardship. Democrats punish the rich, Republicans punish the poor. If I make a lot of money, I will be betraying my father who never made much money, and on and on and on. I know I've come across many people also, they're worried if they made too much money, then everyone else is going to hang on them and they will ask. So they rather have a humble life and, not make so they don't have to be responsible for the newfound friends and cousins coming from, after 20 years finding them and asking for money. So these are the pressures they feel. And that brings me to the reason that there are only few people who succeed in life from the wealth point of view or financially because they have these belief systems. I've met, during my 40 plus years, I've worked with and I've met athletes. Just think about that. A lot of rap musicians, singers, musicians. Think about, I've worked with a lot of traders. I've met a lot of traders that they make millions and millions of dollars, but they end up being bankrupt. They end up end up losing money. And they're brilliant. Some of them, I've met a trader in Chicago. He had turned $10,000 to 1.2 million under a year 3 times. He was a British trader and fantastic brain. I mean, it was just great talking to him. Yet he had this belief that he did not deserve that. There was this self-sabotage in him because when he was 8 or 9, his dad and his older brother had told him it will never amount to anything. So what was happening, this was triggering all the time. It was great to get to that point. After that, subconsciously he would just lose that money. He would make big bets. His thought was, oh, I made it to a million, next is 10 million. But in his mind, that was the barrier. A lot of people that they put that 100,000 as a barrier, 500,000, and then they wonder why they cannot go beyond that. Of course, when it comes to money management, my suggestion to him was, listen, you got a million, just you know how to make 10 million. I mean, you can make a million. You know how to turn 10,000 to a million. Well, why don't we do this? Take 500,000, 600,000, diversify, put it in some other investments and continue. Just think about you have 10, 20, 50, 100,000. A lot of really good traders actually or investors, they take their every quarter or every month, they take their profits or some of their profits and diversify it. And that's a key. We will talk about the money management. Now, I will be talking a lot. There's a good news because if you have limiting beliefs, and I will be talking about quite a bit about external and internal. Now, when you think about your belief system when it comes to money and finances and other things about yourself, generally they started in our childhood. Generally, it came from our environment. It came from our parents. It came from our family members. It came from teachers, coaches. And that's the good news and bad news. The good news is because it's external, which has turned internal, we can turn it around. And especially for our younger audience, that is the beauty of this, because when you get like to my age, sometimes we have all these layers have been just painted on us that it's very difficult times to scrap it. But the good news is there are ways to do that as long as we are aware of it. So that's one thing I will talk about being external and internal, because that external has become our internal force, and that's what it turns our belief system to be limited in our capabilities. The other thing about external, and I will be expanding on that, a lot of times what we do, we emphasize a lot about information coming from outside, and we are absorbing. We want to learn as much as possible everywhere, and with the access to so much information through so much availability with the social media, with the again with the YouTubes and other things, we are overwhelmed with the internet. My days, my information was through library, and it was such a joyful. That was like my escape, reading a book and finding an answer. Now everything is instantaneous. So we emphasize too much on external knowledge and not enough on internal knowledge about who we are. So I call this outer game versus inner game. And unfortunately, when it comes to inner game, we are not uh, as informed as we should be. Um, Let me change the subject and talk about, I don't know how many of you play, Sudoku. I mean, it's one of my favorite games, or how many of you, play chess. One of the things is the problem we have when it comes to finances. Unfortunately, again, with access to so much information, we find shortcuts. We do not understand the fundamental understanding of education about why things happen, why we are even doing this. I can tell you again, I love Sudoku, but you play level one, you start with level one and you master that. By the time you're in level four, level one is nothing. Our youngsters who play Minecraft or they play FIFA uh, games, and they start from the beginning, and by the end they're just so good because they have learned the skills. Unfortunately, when it comes to, again, to today's social media and all the accessibility, TikTok, Instagram, we are bombarded with so much that we have a very shallow understanding of things, and we jump from one thing to another. And basically, what happens, we never have fundamental understanding of what's going on. And that's why there's just so much misunderstanding and so much hype. Majority of, if you look at some of the um, look at the trading, for instance, influencer, I just use that. Well, generally they're just very good marketers. They have not even, I'm not sure if even they trade or they do investments. So basically, we are bombarded with a lot of information but not knowledge. And this is a great quote from Benjamin Franklin: an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. But the knowledge is organized information. We are bombarded with information. We are looking for that shortcut. Just give me the tip. Once we understand, I go back to chess. Yes, there are like things out there. Oh, if you made these 10 first moves in chess, you can win. Well, if I don't even have a good handling of how the chess is played, there are much better players than me that they will beat me. So there's no real shortcut. Once you have the understanding, once you have that knowledge that why you are doing this, then life becomes a lot easier because now you're focusing. So this is one problem, again, that a lot of investors and traders make a mistake, is they constantly looking for a winning system. They concentrate on that. They don't realize that the risk management is a huge, the money management side of things, the position management. So yes, you could have winning system, but if you don't have the discipline, that's where you are not going to end up being wealthy. It comes back to the psychology. And that's our inner game. Once we have mastered the psychology, we have the winning system, and we know how to manage our risk. That's a pure success. And that's how wealth stays wealth. You don't have a blown up accounts, for instance. It almost becomes more of like a drug, or like a gambling. It's a sugar high, a caffeine high. You don't have that. You have consistency. So basically, if you have the risk management and you have the winning system, then you become profitable. And that's the problem. Again, a lot of times that I'm sure people have taken courses and they've gone to seminars. At that moment, everything makes sense. But after that, really, there is no follow through, because we haven't really gone to depth of what we are doing. So in RM Smart Investing, which is I've been working on this online education. It's not just about understanding fundamental analysis. That we think about Warren Buffett's of the worlds, and we think about a lot of value investing. It's a lot more than that. It's not just about technical analysis, which a lot of people, especially traders, they definitely believe in that. And it's understanding. In our total understanding is, you have to have an edge. You have to understand what is the sentiment, what is the seasonality, what is the cycles in different ways. And the glue for all of those, that's the inner game, which is our mindset. If you don't have this knowledge of all of these, is not going to really make you at least as successful, as wealthy that you should be. The problem is, we become more quantitative in a way of just analyzing things, and we can become a good analyst. But when we talk about wealth, I'm talking about becoming, breaking that threshold, and that comes to your psychology and mindset. One of the good things about, if you learn things from the fundamental side, what I mean by that, from the roots, and you build on it, that builds confidence. And there's a saying that, confidence doesn't come when you have all the answers. It comes when you're ready to face all the questions. And once we do that, once we master that, confidence is an amazing, again, I'm use like a dopamine, and it's amazing that how it motivates you, it inspires you, and the real confidence is what keeps you going. And then the knowledge is amazing, how it can allow you to go to the next level. The problems that we have is that these, again, reading one book or watching one YouTube gives you that false sense of security about understanding confidence. You don't see many surgeons, or if you go even to your dentist, you want to do a root canal. If you ask your dentist, well, what did you do? How many you've done? He said, well, I watched the YouTube yesterday, and I know how to do this because it was a great video. I can go from A to Z. I don't think it would be there for 1 second. The problem is, when it comes to investing and trading, it's amazing how many people are experts. They are telling everyone else. And if you go back even after COVID, when there was so much money being flooded to the markets, and we had all these young, especially younger people, but also all kinds of people, like, they're not going to school, they got this money sitting at home, and they are traders. They call themselves traders. They're doing options, and basically they thought they are professionals. And majority of them, they're back to their old jobs, and many of them, they lost everything. So the problem is, that was a false confidence, because it could have been the beginner's luck, or it was more of a herd mentality. So everybody was following the same thing, and that did not work. Uh, Victor Esperando, he's in 1980s, he was a great trader. And he says the key to trading success is emotional discipline. If intelligence were the key, there would be a lot more people making money trading. So I want to emphasize that goes back to emotional um, health, and the confidence is one of them. I'm stronger because I had to be. I'm smarter because of my mistakes, happier because of the sadness I've known, and now wiser because I learned. And it's about learning the right way. One of the things is talking about emotional roller coaster, and this is part of the cycles that we go through as investor, as a trader. I go back, we learned something new. We are so excited, cannot wait. We tell everyone else what to do. So we are like optimists. I got some money. I learned something. I want to get into the markets. I can't wait. I'm excited and I'm thrilled. Oh, I'm so smart. I'm making this money. And then the euphoria comes. And that's actually the point of maximum financial risk. Now the markets are turning down. Now I'm like, oh, I got a little anxiety. And I said, no, 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 it's going to come back. All of a sudden, we become religious. We found angels and religion and God and start praying because we're in the denial. So, oh, please, God, I promise if it comes back to this where I got in, I will get out. Well, this behavior repeats and repeats. Then it becomes a fear. Then it becomes desperation and panic and capitulation and despondency. And this is the point of maximum financial opportunity. These are where most billionaires made their money, when everyone else was despaired. You go back, if old enough, remember the 2008 financial crisis we had, even internet bubble. A lot of companies went out of business, but a lot of people made money. Even John Templeton, who's one of my heroes, he's the father of really global investments. It was uh, he was basically got wealthy in during the Great Depression. He borrowed $10,000 and started investing in 100 companies in 1930s. And many of them went out of business, but the other ones who stayed, they made them 10 to 100 folds. So that's the key to understanding how these cycles work. And unfortunately, most of traders and investors stuck right here. So one of the biggest, again, the biggest challenges and obstacles we have is the fear, not just in trading, but in everything else we do. And sometimes that's why we like to be in our comfort zone, because we are not willing to take a risk. When it comes to investing and trading, we want to take a calculated risk. There's nothing guaranteed in life. Every breath we take is a bonus. We don't know when the next breath is going to come. So our job is maximizing what we have and accepting that the fears are out there, but how do we combat that, and how we can manage that fear rather than avoiding it, or rather than just denying it. So when it comes to fears, for instance, if you've been investing or you've been trading, you know, a number fear is of your, I can't do this because I'm going to lose money. Or what if, and it happens with a lot of like very high IQ people as well, is like, oh, if I'm being judged because I could be wrong, that perfectionism. Well, then you're not in the right business. And the other part is the greed. What if I miss out? I'm going to jump in because I'm going to have a home run and I'm going to make a lot of money. So when it comes to trading, a lot of times because of that fear, sometimes because of that, we have the high emotions, which could be because of, again, anger, fear, excitement, hate, disgust, frustration, and our higher cortex becomes disabled. And what happens, we go to our instincts, and amygdala is our fear center, and we make things based on emotions and based on reactions. We go back to our alligator brain, which is 700 million years. It becomes the instinct, fear and flight. So fight and flight. So we don't make the right decisions. But once you're in control, you have the low emotions, you have calmness and relaxed, that's when your higher cortex makes the logical decisions and you make the right decisions. You accept things, you're not in denial, and those are the best ones. If you ever want to read a book, Mark Douglas, late Mark Douglas, he was fantastic. He talked about the human psychology. He was in 1970s, he became a commodity trader, and he's someone who comes from the background, a psychologist who has a background in trading. And unfortunately, he passed away in his 60s, very young to do that, but a fantastic psychologist, but also trading really mentor. If you can learn to create a state of mind that is not affected by the market's behavior, the struggle will cease to exist. So again, that's about the control. So let's talk about trading and investing. What is the definition of an investment? Because every time we talk about investing, most of the time people think about stocks, for instance. But generally, investment has a very broad meaning. It's the source of creation and growth of wealth. So how do we get that? What are the ways we do? Well, there's a human capital or the human assets, and there's a financial assets. Most of us who are like going to college and we're graduating, that's our human capital. We're having income. But at the end of the day, the wealth is not, that does not come from income. It doesn't come from salary. It comes from building financial asset, and that's the true wealth. Something that it will continue growing, and if it really sometimes not any efforts from our side, and that's where the wealth is built. So that's why you don't see, there's a lot of successful I use like engineers or even doctors. They have a good life, they have a good living, but they're not really wealthy. On the other hand, you have some great business people who didn't even go to elite school, they didn't even get degrees, but they are very, very successful. They're wealthy because they have owned the right assets, they've worked on the right path, and they've had the right mental set and mindset. So here, when we think about investing, there's different ways. There's the ownership, there's debt, there's actual business, entrepreneurship, there's derivatives, trading, and there's self-improvement education as well. I mean, this is like Warren Buffett is a big believer in that. So, we talk about ownership, people, the two big ones are real estate and stocks, especially if you are, um, uh, especially a foreign investor that's like to believe in definitely real estate, but you need a large capital generally to do that. So stocks and real estate are the two big ones. But there's precious metals, there's currencies, collectibles, cryptocurrencies. Some people master bonds and notes and savings accounts. That's just for the safety. That doesn't build wealth, but that's part of assets. Businesses, majority of when you think about right now, the top 400 billionaires, old days, it used to be family wealth. It was because of inheritance. Nowadays, majority of them are self-made. It's through starting a business, through entrepreneurship. And that's one of the biggest wealth building. When it comes to also making, again, especially have a smaller capital, derivatives and trading has become very attractive. Also, it's very risky, but understanding it, you see, well, it can allow you to go to the next level, whether it's the futures, options, forex. I mean, swaps are more professional, so I'm not suggesting, but they are part of the derivatives. Last but not least is our inner game. It's our self-improvement, our education. I say the classic books and understanding like Latin and Greek prefixes and suffixes and um, finding that solving problems. These are the things that give you confidence and the foundation. So one of the things I keep talking about investing and trading, so I want to define that. When you talk about trader, what do we mean, and what is an investor? So an investor is someone who has a uh, long-term horizon, and that's where generally the wealth is created. So once we talk about trader, generally we're looking at more income oriented, having something every month. Now, what we could do, we can use trading let's say, income to create wealth. So we have to be both of them. So the time horizon is generally short, well, always short for the traders, long for the investors. Risk taking is much higher. Investors are generally risk averse. Traders love volatility. Investors like stability. Generally, traders use the technical side of things and investors use fundamental. But as I mentioned, I used everything. Personality wise, as a trader, you have to make quick decisions, but investors can be patient. Stress level is high, and with investors is generally low, and you've got to pay a lot of toll to become a very good trader. That's why the traders' longevity is only 7% of them can last over a year. It's like a lot of them unfortunately lose their capital very quickly. And information, we are living in instantaneous, so we need the data immediately. But with investors, we have a long-term horizon, so we can work on fundamental and other uh, tools. Types of investments, again, we can use futures, forex, options, stocks, ETFs. Generally for investors, they use ETFs. We can use long-term options or at least hedging, stocks, real estate, mutual funds. And the taxes could be advantageous for traders or could be high, depending on what they do. But investors are long-term, so generally it's low. So let me bring in, wrapping things up, is why we are even here is we want to master things and having an edge, something that you can, uh, by understanding it, maximize your outcome and your profitability, because everything is about risk and return. So we want to either minimize our risk for the reward that we're getting, or we want to make sure our reward is based on that risk is justified. So it's all about the probability of things. Nothing is 100%. If it was, you will not have any reward. So, but what you have is by having the right tools, at least you could have an edge. I give you one example. For instance, understanding what is risk on and risk off, understanding how the markets work, and if there is this harmony in the markets, the message that they're giving you, if you just see that, then it gives you that edge that this is maybe the right time to do our investments. This is just one example from a couple of weeks ago. What you see, these are like the indices for the futures market, for Dow Jones, S&P, NASDAQ. You see they're all in red. So that means the risk is off. There's nobody is, there's a sell-off. But where does the money doesn't get lost? The money is like a river. River water goes where is the best opportunity. So if the money going out of this, then there's a sell-off, it moves somewhere else. So that somewhere else would be more a secure place where the risk, there is not a lot of risk. It could be the treasuries, talking about the bond market and notes. It could be Japanese yen. It could be even the dollar. And then we have the volatility index. So basically, just by one picture, by looking at this, then you know this story matches the underlying actions. So what happens is when I see there's a lot of red in the markets, and yet the risk off assets are doing well, then this is real. So I can go ahead and let's say short the market. Now, if there was mixed messages, let's say VIX was down and the notes were down and then Japanese, then there is a mixed message. And this is not a good time to get involved with these investments. The other one of the risky other assets, like a Canadian, I mean, we're talking about like Australian Aussie dollar or New Zealand Kiwi, New Zealand dollar. So they tell us they're risky assets. So when they are red, that means, well, the money is moving to, again, risk off assets. The other thing, talking about seasonality, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Now, if you have the knowledge of how the seasonality works, how each asset has its own pattern, then this is about having an edge. I just look at this is for past 10 years. We can use like 35 years. You can look at it in 95 years. So we see that in past 10 years, S&P from March 22nd, basically to June 7th, has had a winning, again, ratio of 8 to 10, 8 years in a row, except last one was 2022. And, it has a good background. But look at what happens. The third week of February, we start actually going down till middle of March or the 22nd of March. So if you have this tool, understanding seasonality, maybe you could actually be aware that maybe this is not a good time to go long the markets in the short run. Maybe I should explore after like the spring starts. Maybe that's a better time. So just having that knowledge allows you to do things like, again, multi-level, not just looking pure technical, not just because it's fundamental. You can see from fundamental point of view, we've been overextended or we are expensive relative to other markets for quite some time. But markets do what they want to do. And basically that's why you have the combination of things. This is something I did. This is Fibonacci based on monthly. And I did that. Some of our members who've been here, they've seen this, beginning of the year, I went and talked about this. This goes from the low of 2020 to the high of November 21, 2021, and then the low of October of 22. And what it predicted, it said when the S&P hits 6102 or somewhere around that, we see, and this is done, almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, be aware these levels are somewhere that the markets will hesitate. And look what we've done for the last 3 months. And now this is as of today or yesterday, we've been rejected. So that's an important level. When on a weekly basis, I do market analysis. And a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned this is the low of January to the high of beginning of February or end of January. We looked at the 6145 and that was rejected. And then we come down and this is as of yesterday. Look, we got rejected and we lost all the momentum we've had, and that's been a sell-off, and we closed the gap of the November election. So if you understand these levels, it gives you that edge. So it's not just purely one-dimensional, or because somebody comes on Bloomberg or CNBC says, "Oh no, this is a great bottom, we will do better." So you have your own basic fundamental knowledge of things that you make the decisions based on your own tools rather than relying on someone else. Something else that we use, and I've been talking about this for a few weeks, is like we've been something called the squeeze, which has its own the reasoning. And we've been talking about this from a few weeks ago, and I said we are in a squeeze, so we got to be careful because the momentum is going down. So once it fires, we got to be aware something's going to happen. Well, look, right around here, the squeeze fired and momentum is down. That's why we've had this sell-off. So if you were aware of that, you will do something that it's not, contra to, profits that you wanted to have. The same thing, we use Hakinashi, for instance, and we see right around here, we have two red Hakinashi bars. And what we did basically with our MACD, we got a confirmation there's a sell-off coming. And you can see all these red candles. The same thing happened in NASDAQ. Again, we were in a long-term squeeze, and this is where we were, and this is where we are. I'm using linear regression channels, and look at the Hakinashi. And then that beautiful look. We got two. So these are the life savings in a way. And also I used Hakinashi, let's say, in NVIDIA. So if you were aware of that, you see there's a two red candles, and then MACD turns negative. That gives you a heads up. Maybe this is not a good time to actually go long on NVIDIA. So with that in mind, I'm just gonna tell you just a little bit. Some of you don't know. I've done quite a few speeches in different that I really enjoy that. My biggest joy has been working with our young students. I've had students from all many universities and mentored few people. Um, this is one of the group in our in my office. This young lady, just a little story. She knew how much I love soccer. She actually attended Chapman and she was in the MBA program at Chapman. She goes, Ramin, I heard you're a soccer coach, you play soccer. You know, my uncle was a soccer coach. And I said, oh, okay, maybe he was like a high school coach. And she goes, oh, by the way, my uncle won the World Cup. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's not me. And she goes, yeah, he was a coach of Argentina. So it was, I said, was he Cesar Menotti? She goes, oh, yeah, you know him? I said, of course, he's a hero for Argentina. They won the World Cup in 1978. So what I'm trying to tell you is like amazing small world. Here is a young lady from Argentina with a uncle being a World Cup soccer coach winner and attending Chapman University for her MBA program. So there's a lot of different stories, and I really enjoy that. So what I've talked about, so for the first time, I think I've not done this, and maybe it's the last time. I thought this is a good time to bring the knowledge uh, to our uh, individuals and especially people that always had the passion, how I can help them to achieve their financial objectives. So what I've decided to do, I decided to put a 10-week workshop, but this is really condensed. It's like 2 years in 10 weeks, everything that you need to know. And one of the interesting things is because of my backgrounds is institutional, I was a portfolio manager and managed funds and investments, but also I've been trading over 35 years as well as academia. So I've got few degrees from, so it's a combination of different things. So the knowledge is based on experience, but also the application of that knowledge. So basically we are doing this. We're going to start March 22nd. It will be on Saturdays and Wednesdays, depending on, again, we have members from overseas. So if you're interested, please let me know. You can uh, get connected with me. You will, I can tell you, you will learn a lot of uh, foundation and things that at least at the end of 3 weeks you have more knowledge than 95% of other investors and traders. So that will create that confidence that you can go on, and even if you're watching YouTube or you have a purpose, let's say you love options or you love commodities, you know what questions to ask and what to look for. And with that in mind, I'm gonna stop the recording. I hope that was helpful, and I really appreciate your attention. Thank you so much.